All right, let's take a look at how to process an image into black and white in Capture One. So we will start in the Adjust Tool tab, and we will notice that there's a whole bunch of tools in here. One thing that you should consider doing is white balancing the image, because that will affect how the black and white tones look, because as we know, black and white tones are made up of color image areas originally before they're converted to black and white. Every black and white tone that represents a color could be different depending on the white balance. So if a area has whites that should be white, but they're blue because you're in open shade, they will turn out to be gray and not white. So that's one of the reasons why you want to do your white balance. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and look at what it did. It said it was 5216. I'm just going to go ahead and take it to daylight, which is 5500. Now, I was in New England at the time I took this picture, so a little bit higher up, probably no atmospheric haze like we have in Los Angeles. So it's a little bit cleaner and that type of thing. I could go in and start doing some exposure adjustments and things like that, but I might as well just take it into black and white to do that. But just to show you guys really quickly, I could go in and start doing my exposure adjustments. I could start going in and pulling down my exposure a little bit because I feel that the image is a little on the hot side. I might just go to dynamic range instead and just crank down my highlights and make that a little bit better. Once again, do my basic white and black separation. I could do all this, but it's better to probably do it inside of an image that's already been converted to black and white. So I'll close those panels up real quick, and we will go ahead and open up the black and white panel. I will go ahead and click split tone. Nope, I'm sorry. I will leave it on color sensitivity. I will go ahead and click enable black and white, and then it immediately converts the image over to black and white. And you can tell that this image is actually fairly strong as a black and white. We saw it before a minute ago, and as a color, it's interesting, but it's not that interesting when I take it into black and white. It just makes it punch a little bit more. In fact, this almost has like a almost an infrared quality to it, just because of the way the light was reacting that day. Now, there are some sliders here that you can go in and see what they do in relation to areas in the shot for the sensitivity of certain colors. For example, if I move around the blue, I can see what that does as I either brighten up or darken down my blues. And in this instance, as you guys, as I'm doing this, it's almost creating a really nice gradation to the sky without actually having to go in and put in some sort of a graduated filter mask or anything like that. So this is really kind of a cool feature of the way black and white processes inside here. I can also go in and adjust other colors if I actually had other colors. For example, I could move red around to see if this does anything, and you'll notice it doesn't. Although if I slide that back and forth, it does seem to be affecting the do not enter sign. So I might go ahead and pull that down a little bit to make that sign a little bit more readable. If I go back and undo that, you guys can see that it's a little less dramatic. So I'll go ahead and leave that in there. I can move the yellow slider around, and you'll notice that this yellow slider is affecting what looks like some sort of a paint area on the concrete here, and is also affecting the color of the plants. So something else to kind of consider. In this instance, I will go ahead and pull it down. Yeah, I don't care about this one. Like I said, this comes down to being more of a, that type of thing. Your personal preference. So those are just the colors. Now, if I move back up into the dynamic and the high dynamic range, once again, I will pull the whites over, which will separate out the tonality of the histogram here. And I will pull the blacks the other direction, which will pull them more towards the blacks. And so if you guys see what I just did there, I'll undo real quick. So that's what it looked like before. And then I went back in and I brought it to here, which just adds a little bit more drama and strength to it. There is no reason to open up shadows. For some reason, people get hung up on, I got to see in those shadows. And so they'll go in and and mess with them, and that starts making the image look really kind of illustrative and kind of crappy, in my opinion. A little bit over the what we call a HDR merge taken too far. So realistically, I never open up my shadows unless it's really important for a journalistic lead or something like that. But then I might just go in and do a brush and just open up one part of a shot. Now back to the exposure. Because I've just slid around those sliders, I can take a look at the exposure and say, okay, do I need to do anything in here with the image? So, if I pull down the brightness, that overall affects the image in one way versus the exposure, which I'd already done before. I'm going to go ahead and leave the exposure where it was, which is minus about 20% of a stop, or a fifth of a stop. Now I can go ahead and here and add a little bit more contrast if I feel I need to, and then as before I can also go into my clarity slider and add some more clarity, and I can go ahead and adjust the structure a little bit. So now we're getting a fairly decent looking black and white image. I'm noticing though that when I actually went in and toned this to this look, for the black and white here, I did end up with some corner issues with vignetting. So I might want to go in here with the vignetting and go ahead and maybe see if I can remove it with the slider here. But this is actually affecting the rest of the image, so I don't like what that's doing. So I'm probably going to go ahead and do it under the lens correction. So I'll go to refine, and in here I'm sorry, it's under shape. I will go into lens correction, and I will go ahead and try to see if I could find the lens that I used. In this instance, I would have to probably go to my my library and take a look at my metadata for this image and see what's going on here. It looks like it was a Nikon. It was a 24-50. So I'd have to see if I could find something similar to this. Now this is a much older manual focus lens that Nikon made, so this may not give me the full result. So in this instance, I might want to go ahead, go to shape, and in here I'll take a look at to see what I've got under the Nikon list, and there's a 24-85, a 24-70. So the 24-70 might be the closest I can get to that. Once again, there's a 24-85 shifting. That's the problem with the manufacturers. They've made so many lenses over the years. It's just like, what do you pull? So we're going to go ahead and go with the older version of the 24-70, and that might help me a little bit. And then in here I can go in, and so I've done that. And if I can't find it, getting rid of the vignetting in that fashion, then I might go ahead and consider a crop after the fact. So if I go ahead and grab the crop tool up here real quick and just maybe pull down the image a little bit from the top. Now remember, right now it's pulling it based on the fact that I'm keeping it in the proportion. And in this shot, I don't know if I really need to keep the proportion. So I could probably go in and like rotate this just a touch to kind of line it up better. Or I can grab the tool and have it do it automatically. But this is looking a little bit stronger because I'm basing the upright on this line right here. I can also go in and see what the distortion's doing, which is pulling out a little bit of the curvature by pulling that up a little bit. So I've kind of straightened the line a little bit by doing that. There's a before with that tool, and here's an after with that tool. All right, so that's done another thing. And once we've got that all down, I'm going to go ahead and do a right click here and say ratio unconstrained. Go ahead and pull a little bit more from the bottom like I was talking about. Try to keep the side over here. And once I get that done, I've got a better crop for the image. It's a little bit better because there's a little bit less information I have to look at. And I got rid of that vignette that I didn't like. Now it does look like I might have a couple spots in here. Looks like I had a dirty sensor when these photographs were taken, so then this would need some retouching, and we'll do that later on. No need to make you guys watch me do it. So that's basically taking this into the appearance of a black and white image. Fairly quick, fairly simple, and it's very powerful. Unlike Lightroom, Capture One does tend to do a little bit more nuanced appearance when you're doing it. Another thing that can be done if you want to convert an image to black and white might be like, let's take a look at this image here. So here's an image that I might want to consider processing into black and white. And so I could also go into styles and take a look and see if there are some custom styles in here that might give me a starting point. Here's black and white punch, which is not bad, touch bit contrasty, but not bad as a starting point. Here's black and white soft, which is a little less punch, but a good black and white tone. So pretty quick and simple styles already built in here that someone has already done. So you could start with a style and then you could like crank it from there. So for example, I could go in, let's say I'll grab black and white soft to get me to the black and white. No, let's go to punch. Take it too far. I'll pull away soft. We'll go ahead and go to adjust. You'll see that when I go into adjust, it's already done some stuff to it. High dynamic range, this is what it did. So if I say, okay, that's fine, I don't like what the contrast slider is doing, I will get rid of that by double clicking here, making it backwards, and then I might use the white and black kick like I like to do instead. And that gets me closer to what I want to do in terms of black and white processing. So just some options for you. Black and white processing in Capture One.